So good morning to all who are here in person, and good morning, afternoon, evening, night, day, tomorrow to everybody joining from different parts of the world online. And thank you so much for being here at this, to us and hopefully to you all, exciting and engaging side meeting organized by the International Data Alliance for Children on the Move. It's exciting not only in itself, but also to be on the side of the first ever quadrennial international migration review forum, and a new style of review for a new set of agreements. And we are proud and excited as the International Data Alliance for Children on the Move to contribute what we can to helping all of us as actors in this field to hold ourselves accountable for the commitments that we have made, both specifically in the compacts, but also, of course, more broadly around the Convention on the Rights of the Child. So this meeting today is an opportunity for a recommitment. I think it was 4 years ago, indeed, that we were meeting to launch a call for action on data for children on the move. And the experience has shown over the last 4 years, yes, COVID didn't help, but nevertheless, the progress has not been nearly as fast as we called for and that we are committed to supporting. We are convinced of the power of data. If we know where children are, if we know the situation that they are in, we are better able to work together to be able to support them and to be able to make a difference in their lives and help fulfill their rights. So I have the enormous honor to be chairing the opening session, the first half hour of this meeting. And the meeting really is divided into these two parts, with the welcoming remarks, the opening remarks, and a presentation on the continued call to action. And then the second part, which will be chaired by Gadi, will be an interactive panel dialogue to hear views and to have interaction with a group of experts who can speak to these issues and interact on them. It is a hybrid event, as you see, and as I am hearing people arriving, but I don't see, unless I turn my back on the online audience and see who is online. And there are how many? 100 people online already, so welcome 100 times over to all of you joining online. And I think I'm supposed to speak to some of the rules of the game on how we are dealing with this online environment. It will be recorded. The meeting will only be in English. We don't have translation. I just need to be refreshed on the way we're handling questions and answers. Will appear momentarily on the screen. All right, thank you. So the question and answer functionality is enabled in Teams. So for those of you online, you can use that to be able to register your questions. We will take as best we can, and any questions which are raised that cannot be addressed in this meeting, we will make sure that there will be a written follow-up. Just as there will be an email follow-up to everybody who's in this meeting to be able to share the recording. So with housekeeping done, breakfast for those of us who are A, in a breakfast time zone, and B, fortunate to be here, or other meals underway, it is now my enormous pleasure to be able to introduce two important and influential opening speakers here today. We have Ambassador Garcia, the ambassador to the UN for the Philippines, who is a longtime friend of children and of data, and is here to make some opening remarks. And my director and boss and leader and inspiration, Dr. Vidya Ganesh, who's the director of the Division of Data Analytics, Planning and Monitoring within UNICEF. So, Ambassador, if I can pass the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Truth in Advertising, I'm the Philippine Permanent Representative to the United Nations in Geneva. If you forget to put the Geneva part, I'm kicking out my colleague who is here and he may get upset. And I have to confess, this is a very new kind of setup for me. I'm tempted to say Siri or Alexa, but I will try to carry forward with this disembodied kind of communication. Yeah, so I wish to extend our gratitude to the International Data Alliance for Children on the Move, or IDAC, for organizing this side event. I have a profound respect for the work of IDAC, whose vision is to ensure that data we have on children is accurate, reliable, and reflective of ground realities. For us in the Philippines, more than 10 Filipino migrants are spread out all over, a number of whom are migrant children, of course, and an even larger number are children left behind in the country. Our migrants have continued to be an economic force, uplifting the lives of their families back home. However, there are also unintended consequences and challenges that we are well aware of. The many children without a parent at home. Challenges such as climate change and natural disasters have also contributed to the forced displacement of children. It is for this reason that I encourage a children-centered lens in looking at migration. A very important starting point is data, the key advocacy of Idac, and this side event. This specific focus on children on the move, while recognized as important, has not been top priority until recently in many countries. A more child-specific focus anchored on Objective 1 of the GCM can be better institutionalized through integration in national action plans. Data and evidence can and must be the foundation for policies and regulations that could contribute to ensuring that our migrant children are provided basic welfare and education, can exercise and have access to their rights, and are free from violence and abuse. It is through attention to data and statistics that we can better capture the needs and the well-being of migrants in general and children on the move in particular. I may just relate this to ground realities that I mentioned. This is not a dry exercise in statistical analysis. The UN has estimated that globally international migrants population grew by 83% from 153 million in 1990 to 281 million in 2020, 36 million of which are children. Meanwhile, worldwide, more than 33 million children have been forcibly displaced at the end of 2020. These include everybody from asylum seekers to internally displaced due to man-made or natural disasters. And in addition to that, UNICEF itself has reported that more children than ever before live as migrants or refugees outside their birth countries. So this underscores the importance of the data dimension in our collective endeavors. It's very difficult to persuade policymakers and even the general public if we only give subjective accounts of what is taking place. Something more concrete and, as they say nowadays, evidence-based helps to focus the minds of those who will make the decisions regarding where budgets go, what action should be taken, where personnel can be deployed. So in order to ensure that we are firmly based on ground realities, and ground realities are different according to sector, according to country, according to corridor, migration corridor, this kind of sensitivity and higher resolution analysis be of enormous help to the operational units and the policy making entities that try to see proper management of people and children in particular on the move. Thank you very much, and much appreciation to UNESCO for this initiative.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you, and thank you for that important reminder that every data point we have is a child, and every child counts. So on that note, Dr. Ganesh.
Thank you, Ambassador Garcia. I think you have really, set the tone very, very well in terms of the imperative and the why, and rightly challenging all of us together on the how, so that the data actually leads to the action, and that is what we as data people aim for, as kind of being the golden prize of what is otherwise a very hidden work behind the scenes. When data leads to action and results, then we are happy. So good morning and afternoon. Again, I'm very privileged, along with Ambassador Garcia, to open this side event of the International Migration Review Forum, which is underway, and we're watching that very, very closely to see how the debates and the dialogues actually get better in being evidence-based, and we're following that. So this session, titled "Stronger Data, Brighter Futures: Protecting Children on the Move with Data and Evidence," is very timely. And on behalf of UNICEF, and of course we work very closely with UNESCO, Dr. Garcia. No, it's perfectly good. I think it was because we do the work on migration, and especially children on the move, is something a UN-wide effort. So I'm glad you were able to draw attention to another sister agency, and very happy about it. So anyhow, on behalf of UNICEF and the Joint Secretariat of the International Data Alliance for Children on the Move, or IDAC, which we chair currently. And as Ambassador Garcia has already mentioned, this review forum, which is kind of a unique and first of its kind, after it was set up, the Global Compact was set up, it really presents a very important opportunity to reflect on the progress we have made in protecting some of the world's most vulnerable migrants. And we are today focusing on the children who have left home, who don't make the choices to leave, which is very different from the adults who make the choices to leave. And I'm glad Dr. Garcia pointed to the children left behind as much as the children who are on the move. So around the world, children are crossing borders in record numbers. And in 2020, some 35.5 or 36 million were living outside the country of birth. And this number is growing even as the crisis in Afghanistan, Ukraine, and other places continues to unfold. And many of these children, we know, will face deprivations and serious threats to their well-being. I therefore really, really warmly welcome and thank all the participants who are with us today in New York and online, and from around the world. We appreciate your participation in this IDAC event as a sign of your commitment to the issue we are here to discuss today, that is to address the gaps in the data and evidence on children on the move. As the GCM recognized in its first objective, the data are essential to upholding the migrants' rights. So it's as much as an operational service, to support it. It's more important to position the importance of data as a right to which really, no matter what their age. But when it comes to migration data on children, there is still, we don't know. Children on the move often do get missed out in data collection efforts, and the limited data that we do have are further hindered by gaps that obscure some of the details that are really critical. For example, their age, sex, precision, location, condition, and needs, and other critical details to ensure that they receive the appropriate support and assistance. In this day and age, it feels a bit hard to believe this is the situation, but indeed it is. I often struggle with this, and I keep asking and challenging my colleagues, is it really so? I mean, are we just exaggerating this issue, or is it really the situation on the ground? And I'm always baffled when I'm told that this is really the situation more often than not. Of course, things are improving. So IDAC was really born out of this shared conviction to improve the data and evidence on children on the move in 2020. As Mark alluded, there has been good progress, but not as much as we would have liked, and more concerted and systematic effort is also needed. And you will see some examples in the publication that we are launching today. So today the IDAC renews the call to action, urging all our member states and other crucial stakeholders to make real investments in data work to ensure the protection and development of migrant boys and girls. And I hope today's side event, aptly titled, will offer us some insights to get that acceleration that we need into how data and statistics will play in promoting the overall well-being and sustainable development. I'm really glad that we will hear the most important contents of how it'll guide us from various colleagues. But I'm also very pleased to let you all know that Frank Lasco, on behalf of IDAC Secretariat, will kick us off in pointing to the strategic action points that must be realized to achieve the reliable data and evidence for child-sensitive policymaking and programming, as Ambassador also mentioned. So I would like to thank all of the IDAC Secretariat members, as well as the panelists, for lending their voice, their insight, and for their time to this event. We are particularly grateful to the representatives from Philippines, Norway, Mexico, and South Africa. And I'm also very delighted that we have a youth representative in the panel today. So on behalf of UNICEF and the IDAC Secretariat, I really want to make a very particular appeal to the member states who are participating in IMRF. So while the progress declaration has recognized some progress has been made in improving migration data in general and commits to strengthen national capacities, we have to ensure that such efforts will have a strong child lens that takes into account the unique data needs of children on the move. The IMRF week and beyond, let us really collectively, in every possible conversation that we can have with the member states and with the participants, to shine the light on the millions of migrant boys and girls who are yet to be seen and heard. And please, let's make urgently the needed political, technical, and financial investments ensure that data gaps in children are not left out in the GCM-related dialogues and partnerships action. So this is the week to make it happen, and let's seize that opportunity. So I really thank you, and I look forward to a dynamic and enlightening discussion.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inspiring us to renew the commitments indeed. So I will suggest that the panel moves to the side here so that we can see the presentation that Frank is going to give. Frank, I just want to say I'm deeply disappointed that you didn't make the effort to come to New York to see me. I will forgive you, but only this.
Bagel with you.
They're very good bagels, and you deserve not to have one if you're not going to come here. So, Frank, I will hand the floor to you. Frank is, of course, my wonderful colleague from IOM. And on behalf of the IDAC Secretariat, as Vidya said, we'll be presenting this call to action. Thank you, Frank. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mark, and the Secretariat of IDAC for inviting me to make this presentation. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we hear you well. Thank you, Frank.
Very good. I think Andy will be showing the slides, Estrella. I think her hand is up. So let me start off by saying that I think this is a really important event today. I see that there are numerous side events being organized this week, but I think there are only two which focus specifically on GCM Objective 1, which, as you've mentioned, concerns improving data and evidence. And this is the only one that focuses on children on the move and the whole data challenge. So I think we should start off by reminding everyone that the International Data Alliance for Children on the Move is in itself an example of an innovative approach and potentially good practice in regards to the implementation of the GCM. IDAC was born in 2018 when 5 agencies came together: Eurostat, UNICEF, IOM, UNHCR, and OECD, to join forces with others to try to address this challenge of how we can best improve data on children on the move. And I want to highlight one word in particular in the slide, and that is protecting children on the move, because the goal of this alliance is not simply to collect data on the movements of children. Some of those movements are completely unproblematic. But what we're very concerned about, and if you could put up the first slide, please, Andy, is some of the terrible risks that children face around the world. And let me just give you 2 examples. I won't go through the stock figures which have already been mentioned. But first of all, one of the things we do at IOM is we count the numbers of people who disappear or die trying to cross borders around the world. And even during the pandemic, during the period from January 2020 to today, we counted nearly 600 deaths of migrant children. And we know that that is very much an undercount because so much of our data cannot be disaggregated by age. Secondly, more recently, we're all concerned about the crisis in Ukraine. And one of the concerns, for example, is the potential that some of the women and children may be victims of trafficking. And again, this is an area where we badly need good data in order to protect children on the move. So those are just a couple of examples. I also wanted to stress another point about IDAC. It's not only distinctive because it brings together the 5 agencies, but it's also an open-ended partnership. We now have, I think, something like 45 different partners from different organizations, UN agencies, academia, civil society, etc. It is a very diverse initiative. And it also is a comprehensive initiative because it covers different groups of children on the move, whether they be classified as IDPs, refugees, or migrants. And so I think that when it comes to reporting on the implementation of GCM Objective 1, I think there should be at least a footnote that flags the existence of IDAC and the fact that it has been created during the last 4 years in order to use data to offer greater protection to children on the move. So let me quickly go through the slides because I was told that I should not speak for more than 12 minutes. And I hope you're keeping time, Mark. So let me start by just making a few points about the data challenges. And today we released at IOM a new report called the SDGs and Migration Measuring Progress. And in that report, we invited different UN agencies to write short chapters outlining what data do we actually have or in regards to some of the key SDG indicators which concern their agency. And so fortunately, we have a chapter in the new volume by UNICEF. And I think the takeaway message from that chapter is that it is very difficult in many instances when we talk about SDG indicators to disaggregate information according to by age and also by migratory status. This is despite the fact that we know from various other sources of information that children on the move often experience deprivations and hardships, and we presented a few figures in the slides. The other key takeaway, I think, from this stock take of how much progress has been made in implementing the SDGs is that many countries remain off track. If you look at the chapter by UNICEF, you will see that they have information about 52 countries that are really struggling to meet some of the SDG targets related to children in general, let alone children from migration backgrounds. So I just wanted to mention that as one of the key challenges. And I think it's very timely given that we're talking about the IMRF this week, because the IMRF builds on much of the language in the SDGs, and particularly the migration language in the SDGs. Next slide, please. You can also see, I think, from looking at the data that is collected by UNDESA and others, that it still is very difficult to disaggregate data on migrants, refugees, or IDPs by age. And over recent years, I don't think we've seen as much progress as we would like in this area. And this remains a fundamental challenge. If we cannot disaggregate this information, it's very difficult to make meaningful statements about children on the move. Next slide, please. And so in a nutshell, our basic challenge in this group is to, sorry, did somebody make a, I could hear a noise there.
There's some background noise.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. So our fundamental challenge is to try to address Objective 1 of the Global Compact on Migration. It has at least 11 action points. And as was said earlier, whilst there is a general focus on building data capacities across countries, we lack, I think, specific initiatives focusing on children on the move. And one of the things that IDAC wants to achieve is really to work with some champion countries to demonstrate how at the national level we can really make a difference in collecting better, timely, accurate and disaggregated data on children on the move, which can be used to really offer more protection to those at risk. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, back in 2018, we came together, we launched the first publication. Since then, IDAC has developed into a process which involves regular meetings. There are 4 working groups. It's a very active initiative. And today, of course, we're pleased to be able to share with you the report which has been specially prepared for the IMRF. And let me now turn to 5 key action points for IDAC based on this document which I've just mentioned. Next slide, please, Andy. So what is IDAC trying to achieve currently? Number 1, as I've mentioned earlier, is the challenge of disaggregation. Another challenge which might not seem quite so obvious is the need to make better use of existing data, which is often not systematically shared within countries, between different ministries. Migration is a cross-cutting issue affecting different areas of government, and pockets of information may appear here and there and may not be fully shared or not be accessible to everyone. And between countries, there are often challenges when it comes to sharing of data. We are also, I think, across IDAC trying to promote greater data innovation. We're trying to use new sources of data, whether they be from non-traditional sources such as big data, digital devices, but we're also looking at administrative sources of data and innovation in that area. I think across the Alliance, one of the key objectives is to really focus on how we can better communicate and work with the data that exists, and to work with policymakers to ensure that they fully utilize the data that we are collecting within our group. As I said, it is now a very large group, including more than 45 different actors. Next slide, please. The other thing that we are trying to show in the document that has been released is that data can really make a difference. As Mark said, investing in data can lead to some clear improvements in protection and welfare of children on the move. And so the document that is being shared today includes examples of good practices. I'm not going to go through everything that's here on the screen. I encourage you to look in more detail at the report. Let me now just turn to 1 or 2 other points that I want to highlight. Next slide, please, Andy. As this is the week of the IMRF and everyone is looking backwards at the last 4 years and trying to assess how much progress has been made, It is clearly difficult based on the information that we've been able to collect to say categorically how much progress has really been made. But we provide some examples which suggest that there is much more work to be done in the future. And I think one of the opportunities we have this week is to begin to set an agenda for the next 4 years for IDAC and for member states to think about what actions can be taken in the next 4 years to improve the data on children on the move, so that when we come back again in maybe 4 years' time in New York to talk about these things, we're able to report on much more concrete progress. Next slide, please. And we hope that the IDAC by that time will be fully institutionalized, in inverted commas. We're hoping that to build a unique data platform. We hope that the working groups will produce much more guidance in this area, which will be used by member states. We hope to have dedicated capacity building initiatives, etc. And in order to do all of that, we will need further resources, clearly, both human and financial. But it is, I think, very impressive to see that to date already so many organizations are giving up, their time on working with IDAC on a voluntary basis. As I said, 45 different organizations come together on a regular basis to try and promote the work of IDAC. So let me just finish off by highlighting a few points from the action plan that we have at IDAC for the period leading up to 2024. A final slide, please, Andy. So in a nutshell, we will be trying to do 3 main things. One is to ensure that we do as much as possible to strengthen national data capacities and to ensure that any work in this area includes a focus on children on the move. We know that there is an ambition across the UN system to launch a global data capacity building program. It's important that that program also includes a focus on vulnerable migrant and refugee and IDP children. Secondly, we believe that we know that there is a huge amount of innovation being conducted in the data field. There are many new techniques being developed. We need to harness the potential of these new data sources and ensure that they are being utilized to better protect children on the move. And then lastly, we sometimes forget this in the data world. It's obviously not enough to simply collect and analyze the data. We need to be able to communicate that information effectively and ensure that it's being utilized and that the data has an impact. And that is very much the focus of the work of IDAC. We really want to make sure that the data we collect has an impact and makes a difference. So I would encourage all of you online to take a look at the new report released today and to work closely with the IDAC team over the next few years so that we can all work together to make a real difference in this area. Thank you very much. I don't know whether I kept to the 12 minutes mark, but over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Frank. It depends on the margin of error we want to apply to this measurement of 12 minutes, but it was, given that you have both the passion and the knowledge to be able to speak all day, I think it was very close to 12. So thank you, Frank. And that was really excellent. So that is the end of part 1. Part 2 of this hybrid event will be chaired in a hybrid fashion. If I see Gadi online, hoping, otherwise it's going to be.
Yes. I'm here.
There you are, jolly good. So I'm handing the floor virtually, as it were, to Gadi to be able to lead this exciting interactive panel section of the event. So thanks very much, and thank you, Frank. That was a great presentation.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. I'm Gadi Sajovic. I'm head of the Statistical Technical Support Unit with UNHCR's Global Data Service in Copenhagen and Senior Statistics Officer with UNHCR. Just to tell you that for us at UNHCR, I mean, IDAC is a great opportunity to partner with other agencies, member states, and other partners in improving visibility of our populations of concern, particularly the forced displaced children, which is an area that is very important to us, given all the protection issues associated with it. This interactive panel, basically, we're going to have 3 speakers. We want to discuss a bit what efforts can be done in achieving GCM Objective 1 on data, like Frank was saying in the previous presentation, and how also IDAC and other partners can support those types of efforts. This is meant to be an interactive discussion, so feel free to use the floor and use the Q&A function within Teams. After the presentation of each speaker, I will call different questions that are asked by the audience and open for wider discussions. We are very happy to have 3 speakers today in the panel and try to bring some diversity to it as well, to have different perspectives. So we have a youth representative, Ms. Alankrita Dayal, who is a young migrant who founded at age 17 an organization called Program Your Future to help young women and minorities from immigrants and refugee backgrounds in STEM careers. She's also the North America focal point for the Migration, Youth and Children platform at the Major Group for Children and Youth, where with her team, she works on addressing a range of social issues affecting young people all around the globe. We also have Mr. Vebjørn Allandslid from Norway, who is a senior advisor at Statistics Norway at the Division of Development Cooperation. He has had different positions in Statistics Norway from 2000 to today, working on migration and population statistics mostly. And lastly, we have also Mr. Jean-Christophe Dumont. He is the head of International Migration Division of the Directorate for Employment, Labor and Social Affairs of OECD. He is responsible for the publication of OECD Annual Report, the International Migration Outlook, and other OECD publications on migration. So these are the 3 perspectives we wanted to bring, one from the youth, one from a member state, and one from international organization and an IDAC partner. Let me start with Alankrita. I will put 3 questions to you, and feel free to shape your answer how you would like to. First of all, thanks again for representing the youth. As a migrant youth with a strong background on data and community engagement, could you please tell us what achieving GCM Objective number 1 means to you and other children on the move? And how can youth help address the data gaps and needs on children on the move? And lastly, what would be your advice or demands from governments or to partnerships like IDAC to promote improved outcomes from migrant children? Over to you, Ellen.
Thank you for the introduction, Gadi, and the opportunity to bring the perspective of young migrants into today's discussions. In our preparations for the IMRF, we held consultations with young migrant leaders as well as youth-led organizations that represent over 556,000 young people across 36 different countries. There are 272 million international migrants, a third of which are under the age of 30. However, at the moment, policymakers face various migration data challenges when trying to access accurate, reliable, and comparable data, especially when it comes to data about children and youth. And so for migrant and refugee children, achieving GCM Objective 1 means improved access to services and delivery, greater information and training to guide their arrivals and social integration, and stronger civic and political participation. As youth, we strongly encourage governments, the UN, and other stakeholders to adopt standardized terminology and create informational databases and ad hoc committees that regularly update migration data. We encourage international cooperation as well to accurately collect and utilize data to drive evidence-based policymaking. For instance, data can help us support on-the-move children and young migrants who are at a higher risk of abuse, trafficking, and exploitation, especially when they are traveling alone and through irregular migration pathways. If we sort data for child migrants by age, sex, and whether the child is accompanied by a parent or guardian, we can help determine their vulnerability and protection needs during transit and upon arrival. Similarly, when it comes to creating accessible healthcare, leveraging data to guide the design of immunization programs and relief services can lead to stronger outcomes, especially during pandemics. But what's concerning is that sometimes metrics have been defined in an attempt to measure progress in one area, but they're often insufficient. For instance, when policymakers attempt to get a picture of how many migrant children attend school, school registration data doesn't necessarily mean that these children are actually attending classes. As I and other youth know firsthand from our experiences, there's challenges that families face every day, juggling day and night work shifts and transportation struggles that can impact actual attendance. And so these types of nuances are very difficult to capture in a database. And what ends up happening is that governments rely on their personal networks to obtain this information. And I think this raises an opportunity for on-the-ground researchers and NGOs to partner with governments to bring forward this kind of qualitative information to guide and support the understanding and design of social interventions. Additionally, data-driven technology also has the potential to bridge barriers experienced by migrant youth and serve as a mechanism for social integration, for education to empower youth with employable skill sets, and for accessing civic services such as information on immigrants' rights, training for citizenship tests, and opportunities to volunteer, register to vote, participate in civic forums, and give feedback on civic planning processes. For example, one of the major challenges migrant and refugee youth face is an inability to access hardware technologies and reliable Wi-Fi networks, which consequently hampers their ability to access quality education and other career preparedness opportunities, which then has a direct effect on their future job prospects too. At Program Your Future, I have addressed this setback by developing fun educational learning games and apps that can be accessed from anywhere around the world and in any language without the added cost of a Wi-Fi connection. I've also designed web-based educational technologies, including virtual reality course materials, as well as tailored robot building and programming games that utilize big data, machine learning algorithms, artificial intelligence, and gamification to create a personalized, rewarding, and engaging learning experience that sparks our students' interest about high-impact careers, exposes them to role models that actually look like them, and equips them with the rigorous practice and knowledge to become high achievers in their school subjects and make a real world impact themselves. With nearly 85% of the world's population owning smartphones and its use rising exponentially, especially among young people, prioritizing the design and development of easy-to-use one-stop apps can help develop smart and inclusive cities in which city services, buildings, transportation, and infrastructure are all connected to networks that in turn also generate huge data sets with which urban policymakers can then inform and validate new sustainable solutions. At the same time, while designing tech policy, it's important to be inclusive of migrants who leave less of a data trail too, and who may thus be underrepresented in the running and planning of future cities. And we can do so by co-designing with migrants themselves, both young and old, digitally literate or not, while also keeping in mind the diversity of our intersectional identities, including gender, disability, ethnic origin, sexual orientation, and religious beliefs that we each bring to the table to really ensure city services are empowering people with more control and independence and truly enabling everyone to participate fully, equally, and effectively in society. And by adopting ethical design practices as we create digital experiences, we also influence companies companies and communities to do the right thing by respecting human needs, addressing xenophobic attitudes in public discourse, and finding ways to counter them with fact-based information and communication campaigns. So thank you so much for having me here today and allowing me to share the youth perspective and how we can leverage data effectively to enhance socioeconomic inclusion within our studies. Back to you.